Hello, and welcome to this new episode of Alive and Teaching. Should we communicate with our students through WhatsApp? Meaning, should we give them our phone number and be easily accessible to them, directly accessible to them? Obviously, there are many or different opinions when it comes to this matter. Some teachers consider that we should keep away from communicating directly via WhatsApp with students. Others that consider that, on the contrary, we should make ourselves available. And others, and I am part of them, that consider that it depends on what we are talking about. So, to address this issue, and bearing in mind that we are in the 21st century, that, as I mentioned several times before, and I will keep mentioning, our relationship to students happens to be building on different foundations in the 21st century, I will enter into three dimensions today to express my point of view on this way of communicating with students and whether it should go or it could go through WhatsApp or not. We're going to start with the principle, then we're going to talk about the context, and then we're going to address some possible exceptions. Let's go. So first of all, when it comes to the principle, I would say that the principle is that we shouldn't communicate our phone number to our students. A phone number is something private. Our phones are constantly with us. Any communication towards us that would come from a student could happen to coincide with this extra professional, extra activity, extra teaching moment or period that we are in. This is why I think that communication should keep channeled in or through other means. We have, of course, the emails that are, I would say, the more logical and the more straightforward means to communicate between teachers and students. There are also other platforms or tools depending on what institution we belong to, but more and more institutions have been putting at the center of the teaching activity platforms such as Canva, for example, or even such as Blackboard. All of these are ways that allow us also through direct messages and through group messages to do, if we want to do it that way, without the email, and to communicate directly to students. What I mean here is that the relationship that we have with students remains first and foremost a professional relationship, and this is where the communication should answer some parameters. And taking my example, I put in my syllabi the principles for communicating that are based mainly either on Canva, the platform that has a way of communicating directly from the student to the teacher, or by email. And I think that this is a principle that should be put at the center, because this is where students also understand better that there is a way of doing with their teachers that has to rely on something called professional, something called formal, something that at the same time, I would say, leaves a trace of what has been dealt with between the teacher and the student. Then we must look at the context that prevails too, because I am not so rigid when it comes to the use of WhatsApp with my students. The context determines everything. Taken broadly speaking, I would say that students don't have access to my phone number, don't have access to my WhatsApp, and I don't even set a WhatsApp group with my classes, for example. My classes are meant to rely on the channels that I mentioned just before. The syllabus is clear about the ways to reach me, and my commitment is to do as fast as possible to come back to them when they address me with a specific request. Now, what I ask from them is also to specify in the title or the subject of their email whether their request would be urgent or not, because emails tend to accumulate, and by accumulating I should be able to sort out what is urgent from what is not urgent, and I trust that when it is urgent they will specify it. Otherwise they will make it clear through the title that it is something that can wait. But then I also have some working environments with some of my students that gets me to considering using WhatsApp with them. I could think of some of the activities that I'm involved in. One is a podcast that I am supervising with some of my students, and this podcast, by nature, gets us to having to communicate efficiently, to having to communicate, to even be discussing efficiently by writing messages to one, the ones to the other. So this is rather controlled, meaning is that it is a WhatsApp group between the students that are involved in this podcast and myself. And there, what we do is that we communicate when we need to do it. We communicate when we have to ask questions to each other, when we have anything at the end of the day related to the podcast in itself. And the fact that it works, meaning that beyond the matters that are related to the podcast, there is nothing personal that is being put in this chat, which makes sense at the same time because it is a common chat between a small group. And this is where we have it quite clear that what we want to discuss is about the work that we're doing on the podcast. Then I could also think of another configuration or another situation that prevails, and it is the one related to some of the groups that I work with. So, for instance, if I take my current position having to deal with a group of master students, and this group of master students is of a modest size compared to the other classes that I have, plus the fact that, of course, as a person responsible for the masters, there is some communication, some information that I need sometimes to send them in a straightforward way. There we have a WhatsApp group that is set there, not because they asked for it, but because I am the one that suggested it. So at every beginning of the semester, I sent this email telling people that there is this WhatsApp group that they can join, and if they don't join it, of course they would have reasons not to do it. But I mean, so far, though the experience here is recent, I should say that it is working quite well, meaning that the communication is flowing from me to them without any problem. And the truth is that when it comes to the communication the other way around, I am not sure that there is any exaggeration when it comes to them communicating with me through this group. I know at the same time that when it comes to this MA group, they communicate on their side through another group that they created, and I think that this is a perfect way to doing it. But my point here is to say that when there are some work-related justified contexts, then I am totally okay having this WhatsApp group. The way actually students understand that when I said it that way, this is because we are limiting our relationship to what belongs to the master, its functioning, all the admin or all the academic work that is related to it. But then we come to some exceptions, because I also work through exceptions. Exceptions are many, of course, but I would say that if the respect and the boundaries are put at the middle of the relationship with the students from the very beginning, this is where exceptions happen to be totally acceptable. So one of the exceptions that happens to prevail, I would say, in many cases, is when students have graduated. Many students graduate. We have different natures of relations with them depending on how the semester went, on how the semesters went, and how things went between the moment we knew them and the moment that they graduate. But I mean, with some students, we keep in touch. We keep the contact beyond their graduation. We even meet up and we discuss. And so this justifies the fact that we could have a relation that would be more flowing. And this is where I have no problem telling them, okay, send me a WhatsApp if you need, or call me, we can meet. But once again, this is done with the students that I really have a strong relationship with, based on the academic side that has bridged us somehow during the different semesters that we've been working together. Otherwise, I don't go so automatically for giving my phone number and saying, okay, let's talk through WhatsApp. Then within this, there are also exceptions when it comes to the students that I still have during their studies and during my teaching at the university. So it happens sometimes that some students get in touch. It's exceptional, but it happens. They get in touch and they tell you, okay, I have this urgent request. Can we talk about it? In these cases, actually, it's really case by case that it should be dealt with. The normal thing would be to answer, but then the answer would depend also on the nature of the request and would depend on the urgency, I would say, of it. So my principle there would be that if I have never given my number to someone and they reach out to me, then I would put a limit directly there by saying, okay, you know what, we can talk about it when we meet, or we can talk about it by email, but this is not the tool to doing it. Then, to be honest, there are also other situations where students could, having access to your number because they have access to it one way or the other, through groups, through students, someone that shares it, many situations could happen there. So some students could bypass somehow the teacher-student relationship and send a message, let's say, through WhatsApp as a way for them to, I think, try and suggest a strong relationship with the teacher. To be honest, in some situations, I don't feel the obligation to answer them, meaning that I think that the principle of having a working relationship as the basis has to be kept there. And then, as I mentioned before, there could be situations, especially after students graduate, where, of course, we could keep things flowing through these other means. So at the end of the day, I think that the principle is that as long as you are respected and as long as this continuation of the communication builds on a ground that has been very positive, there are many ways to considering that, yes, we can definitely communicate by WhatsApp. I would just add a last point here, which is the following, that I discovered also through the habits of my students. While students happen to be communicating the one with the other more on tools such as the direct messages on Instagram, and I've even been surprised more than once now by situations that I've seen when two students that meet each other want to keep in touch, to keep the contact, and then they say, okay, what is your Instagram account? So I mean, that's interesting. That's a new way of doing. I think it is less intrusive also than what giving a phone number is. And this just confirms to me that in the 21st century, and in the times that we are living, we as teachers also have to adapt our communication. But I think that the principle must remain the same, meaning something professional put at the center. I think the email is still something that should be working. And then maybe one concern that we could have there is the fact that many students tell you, you know what, I barely check my emails. Okay, one, it is their responsibility. But two, if they happen to check less and less their emails and we need to keep communication flowing, then maybe we could explore also some alternative ways. But this, we will discuss it in another episode. Thank you very much for listening or watching this new episode of Alive in Teaching. By the way, please don't hesitate and follow us either on YouTube, where episodes are regularly published, or on Spotify too, where you can either listen to or watch even these podcasts or video podcasts. And then you have our newsletter on aliveandteaching.com, where you can be informed not only of the episodes when they are out, but also of the episodes that will be that would be on the way. Thank you very much. Take good care and see you soon.